Hey, I'm Jennifer Hurvitz, best-selling author of the books One Happy Divorce and Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda. I'm a relationship coach, a public speaker, and I'm the mom of two of the most kick-ass teenage boys around. Raw, authentic, and insightful, this podcast is a no-bullshit slice of reality for anyone curious about what it looks like to get divorced. On Doing Divorce Right, we'll give you the tools you'll need to navigate your relationships, whether you're contemplating divorce or have already signed the papers. We'll figure it out together without taking ourselves too seriously here on Doing Divorce Right podcast. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. It's Tuesday, and every Tuesday it's Doing Divorce Right or Avoiding It Altogether. And I'm your host, Jennifer Hurvitz. I'm so happy to be here. I have had so many listeners reach out to me and say, Jennifer, please answer our questions about how to co-parent and handle a narcissistic, I can't even say it, narcissistic ex. What do we do? How do we do it? And I can't answer you because I'll tell you why. I just can't. I don't have the answers. But now today, finally, I do. I have the best guest ever. I say that every week, but I do. I have one of the best guests ever today. I think I can call her my friend now because we text a lot, right, Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay, good. She's my friend and my colleague, Lindsay Ellison, and she's here today. I'm going to read her bio and then I'm going to bring her out, and I'm just going to let her go because this woman is so just knows her shit. She knows what's going on. She knows how to handle. I just could go on and on about this girl. So Lindsay Ellison is a relationship coach and the founder of Start Over Coaching, a coaching practice dedicated to helping people navigate their divorce or breakup. Lindsay also specializes in helping people break free from narcissistic abuse. And she is the author of the best-selling book, ready? You guys have to get this book, Magic Words, How to Get What You Want from a Narcissist. Okay, I can't even. You can find Lindsay on her popular podcast, which I love, Unbreakable You, Break Up Without Being Broken, or on her website, lindsayellison.com. All of this will be in the show notes later. Lindsay, hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm
so glad to be here with you.
I'm so glad to have you because everyone says to me, I've had a couple podcasts about narcissism and narcissists, and they're my biggest numbers. And everyone says, Jen, help me. How do I do this? And I'm not, this is not my area. So when I read your book, I was like, oh my God, I've got to have you. So how do we do this? Where do we start? What do we do? What are some tips? You just talk. I'm not going to interrupt you.
Oh my gosh. Well,
I know you're like, where do I go?
I know. Well, let me just first give a background a little bit about me and how I kind of got here.
Please do.
I had met my ex-husband, sophomore year in college, and we were together for 17 years.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Wow.
And I came from an interesting childhood. My mother died when I was very young, and I had a lot of clear abandonment issues, and I had a lot of nannies, and then my dad remarried, and she came into the family with a lot of issues. So, I did not know at the time that my dad was a bit of a narcissist himself. Okay. He's not out of control or anything, but I think something happened with the death of my mother. They were, she was 34. I was 6 years old and died in a car accident. So it was very, very sudden.
Didn't know that.
And I think something happened in my dad where he just died along with her. And I don't think he really fully ever recovered. And so I just went through my childhood just feeling very alone and very, abandoned on many levels. Sure. And so when I met my husband in college, he was just that Prince Charming, knight in shining armor guy to just take away all my pain. Mm-hmm. And it worked. And we were together for a long, long time before we even got married. I think we were together for 7 years before we got married. But the red flags were there really early on. And because I didn't have a voice and because I was so afraid of being re-abandoned again and being alone, I just stuck it out with him. And throughout my relationship with him, I always felt as though there was something wrong, but I could never really quite pinpoint it. Okay. And I learned much, much later that he, is a covert narcissist. There's really two kinds, covert and overt. An overt narcissist is, really, it's kind of obvious. They've got a lot of issues in terms of overtly being this Prince Charming, and they need a lot of stuff, and they've got to have the fancy cars and the flashy stuff. And he's not that way.
Okay.
A covert narcissist is typically someone who acts like a totally normal person, but behind closed doors, they will really put you down and do a lot of passive aggressive gaslighting, stonewalling, a lot of these tricks that really mess with your head.
Right.
And because I was so young, I didn't really know any better. And I just really always thought there was something wrong with me. So I was the one always going to therapy, kind of working on our marriage and all of that.
I think that's lots of us.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of us are there. And it's,
So I think I remember, turning 30, and I was thinking, okay, something's not right. And it took me about 5 years to really navigate that. And even when I decided to split from him, it was just this need to get away and escape.
Okay.
He was never physically abusive or anything like that, but he was really mentally and emotionally abusive. Mm. And so I left, and that was a very, very hard thing to do. My kids were really little. They were 4 and 7. I have 2 boys, and I left, and I never really knew why. I mean, people would ask me, well, what happened? I thought you guys were like this happy couple, because of course, to everyone else, we looked like this happy couple. Right. And it really wasn't until a year out of being separated, and then I fell in love with another person who was now a overt narcissist, and he ended up breaking my heart, and my whole world just came crumbling down, and I hit my lowest of my low, like rock bottom of the rock bottoms. I mean, to the point where I was like questioning whether I should take my life. Okay. And thank God I didn't, because I had my kids, right?
Right. Yes.
But that is where the fighter in me kicked into gear. And I'm like, can I curse on this show?
Of course. Oh my gosh. Of course. Yes. Okay.
I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Right. You're like, what?
In my life.
Right. Right.
So I saw a new therapist who I'd seen the same one over and over, and I saw a new one, and she right away said, Lindsay, that guy's a narcissist. Oh, and your ex is a narcissist. Oh. And I didn't really know what that meant. Right. And I remember leaving her office, went straight to the bookstore, found one book on it at the time. This is 10 years ago.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And one book on it at a time. And I thought, oh my God, this is my world. And in many ways, it really helped me, because I thought, it's not me.
Right.
It's not, I mean, it is me. And then I was the codependent, co-creating this dysfunction, right? But I knew I could fix myself. And that is where I felt very, very empowered. The minute I realized that I can fix me, and I can figure out how to navigate this kind of relationship. Now I'm co-parenting with this guy.
Right.
That is when I kind of put my journalism roots, I have come from a journalism background, and I started to write about it. And I really started to research the personality disorder. And I learned at the time that it really hasn't been classified as a disorder in the DSM until like 7 or 8 years ago.
Right, like recently.
Yeah. And it makes sense as to why so many therapists who've been in the field for a long time may not have gotten the continuing education on it. Who knows? Right.
Right.
And that's where I started to write about it. And then just kind of by accident, I got into coaching, because all of my articles went viral, and not all of them, but many. I started writing for Huffington Post, and you can Google me if anyone's interested.
Oh, yeah. But you should Google you. You've got the most incredible, just everything is so, you're just really smart. You know what it's just great information. And do you really feel, and this is, I don't know much, but I have done some Googling of you and some reading, and I read your book. And so you think that, like, obviously it's a pattern, do you think you are, people say to me all the time, well, I collect narcissists. And I'm like, yes. Is that like a thing?
It is. Okay. It is a pattern. Yeah. It's a pattern that you could break. So here's what happens. It's, and I explain this a little bit in my book, but narcissists and codependents have very similar childhoods, right? We all come from a childhood of whether we have some kind of trauma. And when I mean trauma can be, it doesn't have to be the Lindsay kind of trauma where mom died in a car accident kind of trauma, but it could be, a trauma is basically a memory stored in a different part of our brain. And we make rules and have a narrative based on what happened. And it's typically not a healthy narrative. But as we get into adolescence, and I say we, meaning us and then the narcissist, we have very similar childhoods. And how we handle our life and our parents starts to it's kind of like a fork in the road, and a codependent will go one way and a narcissist will go another. And the codependent's mindset is typically, I can only handle what's going on in my life by not having a voice and by being a pleaser, by not speaking up and making sure I'm a good child or a good girl.
Oh, wow.
And I will then get rewarded by my parents, and my safety and my survival, it will be intact should I do those things. And I'm keeping it really high level, simplistic.
Sure. Yeah.
The narcissist, on the other hand, will say, the only way I can survive and deal with whatever pain and trauma that I've gone through is if I create a false sense of self, and I become someone different.
Okay. Now, do you think would be that you go either? You don't have to go either way. It's just but this is the two ways that if you have a trauma in your life or you come right. I mean, not everybody's one or the other. Just make that clear.
Right.
Although I definitely think I want one way. I'm definitely codependent.
Yeah.
So I'm listening to you going, oh, this makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. And so basically we are getting rewarded by one parent or another, that if you are a doormat and you don't speak up and you don't have boundaries, your survival is intact. So therefore we create in our subconscious that should we not have a boundary, everything will be fine. Should we have a boundary, we will be punished for it.
Right. Wow. Okay.
Okay. And that's where we become magnets to narcissists. Okay. And narcissists typically like women. And again, I don't know if narcissists are men and women, but yes, I don't know if your audience is mostly women, but
I got both.
Okay.
It depends on the topic.
Right.
Yeah.
But narcissists really gravitate towards codependence because they don't have boundaries. And the weird part is, and this is what everyone asks me, is, we are actually the stronger person. They gravitate towards us because we're typically outgoing. We have our shit together. We're educated, all these things that there's some sort of light within us, and they gravitate towards that light. And ultimately down the road, the longer you're with them, they steal it from us. Yeah. They are energy vampires. They take our light. But then I also know is that we give it to them as well, right?
Totally. Yep. I'm listening as it going, yep, totally. I knew that was next. I'm like, yep. Yeah.
So when they start to take our light and we give it to them, they project all of their hate and all of their pain of themselves onto us, and then we own it. And we start to think that there's something wrong with us. And we start to think that we're the problem, because whether they overtly or covertly tell you that you're the problem, we believe them. And the only way to make it better, because we're so afraid of being alone and so afraid of reigniting trauma that came from our past way before we even met them. We don't want to feel pain anymore, that we will do everything we can to make it better.
Right.
And so we stay. And then that cycle continues and continues until one day we get divorced from them, if that ever happens.
Right.
But to answer your question about the co-parenting aspect of it, once we have a boundary, and divorce is the biggest boundary there can be, right?
Yeah.
Once we have that and there are rules and laws applied, and being that narcissists don't like boundaries, I say boundaries to narcissists are like kryptonite.
It's so funny you say that. Yeah, I'm listening to this in my head. I'm just flashing to so many clients and so many people that I know that are co-parenting with narcissists, and I'm thinking, bingo! Like it just all makes sense. Okay.
So typically, they don't want to follow the rules, and we go round and round and round, banging our heads. We come from a place of right and wrong, and they come from a place of right and right.
I love that. Absolutely. Yes.
And so we have, when we go into this kind of next phase in our life, when we're co-parenting, we are navigating the negotiation based on right and wrong, and they don't see it that way. So that's why it never works. Okay. Right. And what I have learned through not only coaching people, but through my own personal life of co-parenting, I have 50-50 shared custody. And seeing how he navigates the way he does, I realized it's not working.
Okay.
And I decided to just basically look at this from a completely different lens. And my number one advice, kind of the first step, is we've got to take off the glasses we've been looking at them this entire time you've known them. And those glasses are this. Think of the glasses and you see them as they are stronger than you are. Okay. And they are bullies and they always seem to one up me. They always know what they're, they somehow always win. And when we have that narrative, that then puts us into victim mode.
Sure.
And we are the weaker ones. That's the way we've been seeing this the whole time. The lens, we got to throw those glasses away and put on a new lens and look at them as complete underdeveloped children who have a disorder. Totally. And you are the stronger one, actually.
Okay.
You have always been the stronger one. They've just told you that you're not, because why? You threaten them.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. If we are now co-parenting with them, and we recognize now that we threaten them, when we text them something that they need to do something or whatever, imagine them, they are getting threatened every single time we engage with them.
Absolutely. Right. Or
so
that's
now,
how they see it. Right. That's how they see it.
We've got to start looking at them as children. So this is, I use this example a lot in my book and my podcast, and I talk about this. I said, when your child, think of your child at, let's say, 4 or 5 years old, and it's dinner time, and you're making dinner, and now they're hungry, and it's not ready yet. And you can see, you see a meltdown coming. You know them, you know they're going to lose it. And let's say they ask for a candy bar or, some kind of unhealthy snack. And you're like, no, you want to say no, but if you say no, the meltdown will happen because they're cranky and they're children. They can't process
time. I don't like the word no. Sure.
Right. So what do? You naturally know to redirect them.
Sure.
Or you will reward them with good behavior should they, play along. And let's just say that doesn't work. They have a meltdown anyway. And I ask my listeners, do you have a meltdown with them? Do you start to cry and have a complete temper tantrum?
It's a great thing. Okay, yeah.
You don't.
No, you don't.
You keep your cool because you're the parent and you know what you're doing and you know that they're the child and they're tired and cranky.
You don't engage.
You don't engage. This is what we need to be doing all the time. So every
so hard,
time,
isn't it exhausting?
It's. I think what's more exhausting is when we do engage. Actually,
yeah. Well, yeah.
It's more exhausting.
But they want you to engage, don't they? Want you to?
Yes.
They love that.
Yes.
Right.
And when they're constantly texting you, and this is what narcissists do, especially the co-parents, when you're co-parenting one, is they will blow up your phone so that you end up responding.
Yeah.
And if they're not blowing up your phone, they will stonewall you and not respond at all. So those are kind of the two worst sides of the coin.
Okay, but either side is narcissistic behavior. If they stonewall you or they blow up your phone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, or just.
I agree.
Being
I've said that. Yeah, they're just being different. Yeah, it's funny because I collect Aspies.
Yeah.
Every day has Asperger's. So I have a hard time deciding if they're narcissists or they're just assholes. I can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other conversation, but okay, keep going. So you don't blow up their phone, you don't engage, right?
Right. But so the first step to co-parenting is really looking at them with a different lens.
Okay.
And it's really about your mindset and your attitude. And when you know that, then you can reframe and always keep your power, right? The minute you start engaging, you lose your power.
Yeah.
And they know they've gotten you. And what they will do very, very well is they will find your biggest weakness and insecurity, and they will go right after it and hit you below the belt. Right?
Yes.
Well, guess what? We can do the same thing.
Sure.
But it's not in the way you think. It's not to tell them and call them names, right? That's what they do to us. And that's really how kind of my book was born. And MAGIC is an acronym, and it's the various steps that you can do to help you reframe and reset and to get those new glasses on, that new lens. And the one thing we have on them is data, years and years of it. We know everything that makes them tick, and we know their weaknesses, and we know their insecurities, and we can leverage that appropriately to be able to get what we want. Now, I always like to footnote this big asterisk that I say this magic words plan and the words that I give in the book is not foolproof. It is a new strategy, and it's basically to help neutralize the power struggle. And then if you are consistent with this, over time, you will see a change in their behavior. And I am living proof of that. I mean, I used to have an ex who every time he would text me, I would have anxiety. I felt, he would always make me feel really guilty about something. And he really made me feel like he was the better parent.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I have clients, and I'm in my head, I'm thinking of people that I know that feel the same way. Like they see their phone with the name come up, and their whole body like just gets all.
Yes,
it's awful. I don't just feel so. It's awful. So this is a great episode because this is going to really help people. Like I feel like having a tool or having an acronym or having something or a book like this to go to and just have some help. It's so great, Lindsay. It really is.
And so one of the things that my ex and they all have a thing. Right? They really do. And if you really start to, again, this is about looking at the whole forest. And I think we've spent so many years focused on one tree, let's say. But if you look at the whole forest, it's quite simple. They have one or two tricks and they do it over and over and over again.
Yeah, you're right. They keep repeating the same thing.
Yeah. And so for me, in my situation, he's got, I believe, has an anxiety disorder. And his narcissism prevents him from doing anything about it because if he did, then a lot of things would be way better for him.
Right, but it'd be admitting that he has something wrong with him, which is.
But yes, but his narcissism, he thinks everyone else is out to get him.
Of course,
that he's the victim, and we are all the aggressors. We, meaning my children, life, work, traffic. I mean, you name it. He's always got some excuse for something. And when I see that, what I can do now is I have empathy with boundaries.
Okay.
And here's another example that I like to give. If you were in, let's say, at a restaurant, you're at a diner, or you're at IHOP or something, and you're having breakfast, and you hear this kid in the background kind of having a meltdown and screaming, right? Mm-hmm. And you look over and the first thing you think of is like, oh, for God's sakes, those parents really need to get a hold of their kid. Like, oh, right. Take the kid outside, right? But then if you look closer, you see, oh, wait, this kid may have autism, or exactly. You see there's something not right about him.
Yeah, and then you have your empathy, right?
And then you have empathy, right? And you look at this kid and you're like, oh man, he doesn't know any better. And then you feel bad for the parents. And then what happens is you tolerate it. You can now tolerate the disruptions and just be like, it is what it is. And this is how we have to see them, is that there's something wrong with them. They are underdeveloped children trapped in adult bodies. And that when they're having a temper tantrum or they're blowing up, you can just then walk away and say, let him cool down. I'm not going to respond. And then you can engage with them in a way where you're appearing to be empathetic, but you still have boundaries.
Right. But here's my question for you. So a lot of times, you have to put your ego aside to do that. Right. And you have to really, that's takes a lot of control to do that. Right. And also on top of it all, I always feel like sometimes it can come off condescending. So then what happens is that
they get triggered.
They get triggered. So like, how do you, because especially like I have people in my life that tend to get a little, it sounds condescending, or the way they text can be condescending because they're just super straight and to the point. And then it ignites a whole other spin out on the other person's, you see what I'm saying, on the narcissist side, because they think the person's being condescending when really they're not. They're just trying not to engage.
Well, I think in terms of whatever your, this empathy with boundaries, should that be your angle in the moment, right? And there's other times where I there is no empathy, and
Sure.
I might ignore him, and there's other ways. There's other ways I do it, but let's just say in that situation, it really has to come from an authentic place.
Okay, gotcha.
You can't be faking it.
Okay, yeah, because if you do, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, and one of my magic words, I'm kind of skipping to the later part of the book, but one of them is that really works well for me is something along the lines of, you seem stressed. What can I do to help? Now that could come off as very condescending, right? And I am clearly not offering help, right? And here's why. Because he would never take it.
I gotcha. Right.
He doesn't value me.
Just saying it, but just saying it, right?
Yeah. And so that is, when I see where he's becoming like in this victim mode and he's literally losing it, and he's going off the rails, I then disconnect. And so what I do is what's called a mirroring technique.
Okay. Right.
And guess what? You know where I learned this?
Where?
From him.
That's awesome. I was going to say, is it from? Yeah.
They do this really well.
Yes.
If you remember when you were married to this person, while you are having so they'll get you so angry. You're calm. Then they get you so angry, and if you notice, what they will do really well is then they suddenly become calm.
I hate that.
And they hate that, Lindsay. Oh my God. Wow, Lindsay, you seem to be having a real amount. Are you okay?
Oh my God, Lindsay, you're making my skin crawl right now thinking about it, because I dated a guy like this where he would make me so worked up, and I'd be like, you love this. This is like your game for like, I said, do you like when the only time you're happy is when I'm miserable? I didn't understand why.
Yes, actually.
He would get me to that point. Yes. Right. And
it
he would get me to that point.
Very powerful.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, they just did a complete transference. They projected how they feel. They gave it to you. So deep down, they are feeling very angry and very out of control.
Yes.
Narcissists need to be in control, and they don't like feeling out of control. So what they will do is they will work you up so much where now you appear out of control. So they grab your control, and then it's like a flip.
Oh, it's the most infuriating. And meanwhile, I feel like I'm a complete nut job. And I'm like, how did I get here? Because I start so calmly and we have a conversation and it's so calm. And then I remember like being like, how did that flip? It's just so quickly. And then all of a sudden I'm standing there going, wait, how did this even happen?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember this like going.
That's where I learned it.
Yeah.
So when I see him going off the rails, that is when I know instinctively now I have to stay calm.
Okay.
And I come off, and here's the thing, narcissists, and I talk about this more in the book, but that narcissists deeply need to be mothered or fathered. Why? Because they have significant parent wounds. And I know with my ex, he deeply needs to be mothered through things. And a lot of the times, rather than arguing with him, which I've done, and it's failed miserably, because why? Narcissists will never, ever, ever, and I say ever, ever times 1,000, they will never see your point.
Never.
Because they don't value it.
Okay. Is it they don't value it or they don't respect you? Same thing?
It's the same thing.
Okay.
They think you are the dumbest, biggest piece of shit ever.
I know.
I'm not joking. I mean,
I know you're totally right. But here's the thing. So I feel like maybe my husband, I call my husband. I feel like maybe my husband was kind of borderline narcissist. I'm not really sure, because he also had Asperger's, which we just don't know. So I always feel like to myself, I just felt so stupid all the time. But I'm a pretty smart girl. And I'm like, look, I know I'm a smart girl, right? So like, why? And I constantly felt like the biggest asshole. Like nothing I could ever do was right. But then I felt like, oh, it's just me. I'm picking that shit up. I have to stop. But then then other people started to notice too. And I was like, I couldn't put the fork in the right place. I couldn't make the turkey right. I couldn't, nothing. I couldn't say the right thing. He would correct my grammar. I'm like, okay, he Google shit while I was talking to him.
Does he know he had Asperger's?
Oh yeah. My son does too.
Okay. But the thing is, he probably has deep shame over that.
Probably somewhere.
somewhere.
He also feels guilty because he was diagnosed when my son was diagnosed really late. He was like, I think, and he's not really diagnosed really, kind of like the therapist was kind of like, well, oh, he got, Jonah probably got it from, it's genetic and, you have it and this one has it. So I think he probably felt guilty also that Jonah, he thinks that he got it from him. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So,
but there's some kind of shame card going on there. Sure. And then when they, all narcissists, they never feel all the things that they say that they are and that they showcase to the outer world of their grandeur, their grandiosity, whether they're making money, or they really love to come off as like the best parent ever. They are doing that and they overwork it so much because deep down they don't think they are. And I'm giving you guys, and I don't want to just really quick, I'm giving your listeners like the secret sauce here.
Oh yeah.
This is everything you think he is, he isn't, in terms of strength, right?
Okay.
They are not strong people. They have a lot of shame.
I totally agree. Like I'm thinking about another person in my life that I know that is clearly divorced from a narcissist. And this is, I want to shake him and say, this is exactly your ex.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for this episode to come out.
And so now if you know this, right, you've got their kind of, their game, their card. And so therefore arguing your point is fruitless. That's the exhausting part, right?
Yep.
Showing them that you're right, they're wrong, or showing them that you know what you're doing and they don't, is only going to trigger them from their biggest pain and insecurity of shame.
Right.
So then this is why I love to be out on people's podcasts talking about this, because it's like, we've been doing this all wrong.
Totally. So what do we do? So what, like, do we?
I can give you a great example.
Okay, go.
Because it just happened and it's kind of fresh in my mind. So my oldest is going to, looking at colleges. And by the way, my kids, and that's probably a whole other podcast as to how I have grown through this whole thing. But when they were little, they were team dad. I mean, I was, they were very much kind of early brainwashing, and mom was the problem, and they loved, he could do no wrong.
Okay.
And that's something that I get a lot of calls and requests to talk about, because people think that they're losing, like they're being erased from their kids' lives.
Okay. And so that's
a red flag, right?
Okay.
But over time, as my kids have gotten older, and I have, thank God, been divorced from him, because I wouldn't have been able to do this still in the chaos of it. But I've coached them through lots of different things in terms of how to see their dad a certain way. And it's not bashing him or putting him down. It's giving them the facts. This is what your dad does. And of course, as kids get to be adolescents, they are now starting to see their own individual selves, and they're going to start to form their own opinions.
Right.
And so now my kids are more team mom than they are team, but they have to tolerate their dad. And so anyway, he was blowing up my phone. He was going to take my son to visit a couple college campuses over the weekend. And this is not something my kid really wanted to do with him. He wanted to do that with me.
Okay.
But I let it go because I'm like, that's, he feels in control. I had made this note in my head. I'm like, if I take this little activity away from him, because I think that's the best thing to do, he's going to feel very out of control and feel very left out. Right. And I have to now weigh in, is that good or bad? So anyway, I decided, okay, yeah, go take him. And my son was not doing the basic stuff like signing up for the open house and being a teenager, right?
Okay. Right.
And so my ex is clearly blowing up his phone. My son has just turned him off. He just will he just doesn't respond, which is not the best thing he should be doing. But
he's a teen.
But ultimately he ends up, so right now in the age group, my ex plays tattletale. He will tell me how bad the kids are, how it's my fault. I don't parent them enough. I don't do this. And I see right away what's going on is that he's going away with his son. He feels anxious about it.
Yes, he
doesn't feel like a good father.
Yeah, yeah.
I know this.
Totally.
Instead of me attaching to him name calling me, I then just say, you're going to do a great job this weekend. I'll make sure I talk to my son. I'll make sure I'll talk to him. And I said, hey, why don't you just do me a favor? Or I think not do me a favor. I didn't say that, but I said something along the lines of, don't be stressed about this. It's all going to work out. He's going to go to a college no matter what. And I think he's going to really enjoy the bonding time. I said, but I think bonding time would be best if you just put some of these things on hold and don't mention it to him in the car. So
look how you did that.
That's I'm mothering him through it.
Sure. And you're getting what you want out of it because you look how you've done. Oh my God, it's great. That's great.
Yeah.
But that takes so much
skill.
So much skill because I would have been I know me. That would have just been a fight. Mm-hmm. Right. But
do you know where it comes from? And this is the root of it. The root of my ability to do that is loving me. It's like a self-love thing. And it's working on knowing what my triggers are and recognizing that my whole life I looked for validation from men.
Yeah, me too.
I'm the girl with daddy issues, right?
Yeah, me too.
And
best friends. Yeah.
And I never got that.
Right.
And I kept looking for men to do that. So I was always chasing after my husband at the time, and even divorce, for him to validate me that I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
And I realized that I don't need that. I don't need anyone to validate me. And in fact, if you really look, I always get a great writing exercise for anyone who's listening is start to map out every success you've ever had in your life, anything from day one, and recognize who got you there.
Right.
A man, or did you do that? And I'd say likely you did it and you made some choices. You were much, much stronger than you think. And the next step then is to give yourself freaking permission to say, okay, I'm pretty much badass. If we've been raised by a narcissistic parent, have been punished for thinking we are a badass. Then we married a guy or a girl who punished us for being a badass.
Wow.
You are so afraid of being a badass because your brain subconsciously is thinking something bad will happen to you should you be a badass. And when you really map out all of your badassery in your life and you're still alive and standing, you then now go, okay, I have been living someone else's narrative.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's when you say, I'm not doing that anymore. And you step away from, it's basically literally, I always say, and I put this a little analogy in my book, you've been playing tennis with this person. He lobs you a ball, you fight it back. He lobs you 20 balls, you're bouncing them back. You have to walk out of the court.
Totally.
Just get out. And you've kind of done it physically. Now you're not married to this person. But the other thing too is I also want to mention is when you are co-parenting with a narcissist, you cannot sweat the small stuff.
Right. Pick your battles.
You have to, you gotta have to let things go sometimes. We can be quite controlling. We'll feel very much in control and we will fight the reimbursement of $25 copay, right? We will get really mad about, them forgetting to take your kid to baseball practice because they chose to, be out with their girlfriend instead.
Right.
And I always like to just say, and ask yourself the question, is this going to kill anyone? Is this going to make or break my child? Is my child's development at great risk? And ask yourself that question. And so, just to run through the magic.
Yeah, please.
Is map their fears and insecurities.
Right.
And I give questions and answers to help you do that.
So cool.
and knowing what triggers them. And once you now have their triggers, you build onto that. And then, I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up. It's mapping their persona, right?
Okay. Yep.
What is their persona? Where, and I give a lot of questions answered about their childhood.
Yes.
This is, all the answers. Everyone knows all the answers. This is the great thing, right? Then it's assess their fears and insecurities.
Sure.
Right? And then it's goal set. So at the G, you've got to always ask yourself, what is my goal for this engagement? And if you don't have an answer, don't engage.
Yeah, like what do you want out of it? Like if you don't even know what you want out of the conversation, why are you having it?
Yeah.
Right.
And if your answer is to change his or her mind, then okay, we gotta set a new goal.
You gotta start over. Pick another G. Yeah.
Or is it to make them feel small? Is it to get your power back? Right.
Right.
Now the only way we get our power back is we keep it, right? We never, we only give it to them. So we can get it back by just changing our mindset.
Yeah. By walking off the court, the court.
Yeah. Like book, throwing the racket down and you're out.
That's it.
Right. And then I is identifying your words. So in the book, I give 10 words or phrases that you can use. And again, I say this too, they're not prescriptive where you have to use these verbatim. It's to give you different ways of putting words together and giving you a different strategy. Like when I said, you seem stressed, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
That's the mirroring tactic, right? You're going to say, so this is what you're saying to me, and I just want you to know this is how you're acting, right?
Right.
But if you were to mother or parent them through their dilemma, it is amazing how much they respond to that, because they're actually having an anxiety attack and you don't even notice it because they're coming off as bullies, right? But if you were to just say and mirror their whatever you're doing or whatever they're doing to you, you don't lose control.
Right.
And not everything needs a response. And I have a client, and I'm just thinking of her, is that her ex is just blows up her phone constantly. And he's always wanting to know what the kids are doing when they're in her custody time. Huh. And then she tells him.
Well, is he doing it just to, do they get along, or he just wants to know because he wants to know?
He's very controlling. Like, what he feels the need to be in control. And so when he doesn't have his kids, he doesn't feel in control. So he's constantly blowing up. Are you doing this? Are you doing this? And kind of checking up on her. And actually that's what my ex used to do with me.
Oh, I see.
And we think that good co-parenting is responding to them.
Right.
And we do it. If I ignore him completely, then it'll just get worse. That's one of the biggest mistakes we make, is that I'm just going to give him a little bit of kibble. So because if I don't give him a little piece of kibble, something to nibble on, then it's going to be worse. Well, that's not really true, right? Okay. If they're blowing up your phone, you can respond and say, hey, I know you're very concerned about where the kids are. I'm on top of things, and I need you to stop blowing up my phone.
Yeah,
right.
I got this right.
But you're disarming them, and you're neutralizing them without completely abandoning them. Now, in my case, I actually don't care ever when he blows up my phone. Okay. I really don't. I mean, it doesn't even remotely affect me. The only thing that bothers me is when he'll start group texting me and the kids. Oh my gosh. I have a client that does that too. They group text and he will group text. Yeah. He will text me. This is the most passive aggressive thing he does, but he will text me, with the kids on it. Yes. And talk to me as if they're not.
Yes.
There.
Yes. I'm like, wait a minute. But then I'm like, the kids are on there listening to the conversation and they're still on the text thread.
Right. So I will then say to the kids, hey kids, this is not for you. Just turn off notifications for this. Why do you think? And then I'll go back to him and I'll text him and I say, you need to start acting like a grown up.
Okay, good. Perfect. Right.
Unless you're going to text me, I am not responding. And I've instructed the kids not to respond.
Yeah. I don't understand that either. We just don't, that just blows my mind. I have a client that does that too, that they do the same thing. And then they forget the kids are even on there. And then they're saying things to each other that are like they're kind of nasty and not appropriate. And the kids are on the thread.
No, you can't do that.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, you have to walk away from it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I hope I've given, and I know, I don't know how much time we have left.
I don't know. We could go all day. Oh, that's right. I'm not even looking at the clock because I'm seriously like so engaged in this because my mouth is honestly, I'm not even talking because my mouth is to the floor because it's such good information. Lindsay, you're going to have to come back and do another one because I would love to talk about like how the kids, co-parenting but how about what do you do for the kids? Like the whole.
Yes. And that is a question I get a lot. And that would be a great topic is how to coach your kids through this
please.
And how to, and the various ages, right?
Can we do that? Can you come back?
Yes, I would love to.
Because I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but being raised by a narcissistic parent, does that can your child actually like not become? Yes. Oh my God, really?
100%. Yeah.
Okay. You have to come back because this.
And my older one is budding. I always call him a little budding narcissist. and I have to pull the weeds out to make sure it doesn't grow.
So you know how to do that. We can actually we can actually stop it.
Yes, you can. And there's a kind of transparency that you have to have with your kids.
Okay.
When your father or mother is a narcissist that you typically wouldn't have in a normal parenting situation. Okay.
You have to come back.
Yeah. I would love to.
Okay. Yeah. Because I think that's important. I have a friend who has an ex that's a narcissist and she keeps saying, well, I'm not going to know. The kids don't need to know. The kids don't need to know he's like that. I'm like, maybe they kind of do because they're teenagers now and it's going to affect them.
They actually 100% need to know. And here's why. And I'll leave you all with that.
Please. Yes, let's do it.
That if you don't crack the code and don't teach them this, they will then fall in love romantically with a narcissist. That's where the pattern continues every generation after generation. You've got to crack the code.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay. And do you think, one more question before we go, do you think that female narcissists are worse than males or doesn't matter?
Absolutely.
Oh, this is true. I can't hang up with you. We have to keep.
I know. Yeah. It is. They are deviant, cruel, and they use their gender with the courts. They do a whole gender power thing.
Yes, like they think they're like superheroes and like all that. Like there's just.
I find female narcissists do an incredible job erasing dad out of their lives, and I mean erasing them, and they. I have several male clients and I've seen this starting to happen and all dad wants to do is just do right by his kids. Aww. And, but when you're, so that's a different story, a different topic, but when you start to see yourself getting erased, this is when you need to start to play serious hardball. Okay.
You've got to,
and you cannot let them get away with that shit. Yeah. And you have to be just as deviant.
You know who came on my show is Ginger Gentile, and who she is from Erasing Families.
Okay. Oh, yes.
She was on my show. She should come on. You should have her on your show because you guys would really.
Documentary, right? The documentary.
Yes. Ginger Gentile. She did Erasing Families. She is amazing. And her story, I cried through the whole podcast because I couldn't believe it. It was so gut wrenching. And I never even, before that podcast, I didn't even know it was a thing. How stupid. I mean, that was like, I felt like the biggest asshole, but I was listening going, does this really happen?
It totally happens.
Oh my God.
My current husband has been erased. He has not been seen his daughter since she was 16 and she's 20, 22, 23. And I was there for the whole thing. I witnessed the whole thing. And the biggest mistake he did is he didn't fight. He did not fight. Yeah. And I think for men, they feel emasculated and they feel and they just give up. Oh. And
Oh gosh.
It's sad.
It is. Oh my God, Lindsay, we have to go. I'm looking at the clock thinking, I just kept you for so long. I'm so sorry, but I just think the best information and people are just going to die over this. I'm just so grateful to have you in my life and thank you for coming today and being here and sharing this. Lindsay, where can we find you? It's all going to be in the show notes, but tell everybody.
Yeah. Follow me at lindsayellison.com. I'm really active on Instagram, Lindsay_Ellison. And I'm going to probably be putting together some kind of magic words workshop or like maybe a 4-week course or group coaching. I haven't been able to, I've got a really busy March, but just kind of follow me and follow my newsletter and all of that stuff to see, because once I get out there and I have a course on it, I will definitely be announcing that.
Definitely have to. And everybody, you need to get this book. My girlfriend just bought it and it's like changing her entire life. I can't even tell you. She called me. She's like, oh, I listened to your podcast and she just loves you. So
thank you.
The podcast is called
Unbreakable You.
Break Up.
How to break up. Well, break up without being broken. Yeah,
exactly. So we've got that too in the show notes. And the book again is called Magic Words: How to Get What You Want from a Narcissist. Everybody, even if you're not, you don't have a narcissist like married to or divorced from it. I think it's a great read for everybody to know, even like a workplace. If you have a boss that's a narcissist or a family member that you think is maybe married to one, or in your even around you, it's just a really good tool to have. It's on my nightstand right now. I'm just going to give it to everyone I know. It's fabulous. I just think,
thank you
so much for being here. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. Thank you for having me, and we'll do it again.
Definitely. You have to come back. We'll do another whole episode. And everybody else who's listening today, go out, get that book. And of course, you know where to find me, JenniferHurvitz.com. On Instagram, it's Jennifer Hurvitz Biz, and pretty much everywhere else, it's Jennifer Hurvitz Biz. I don't know. Go grab my book, Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda, A Divorce Coach's Guide to Staying Married, or One Happy Divorce. Hold the bullshit. And that's it. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. And as always, you know what to do. Peace, love, and so much truth. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to Doing Divorce Right. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe, recommend, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Want to keep the podcast going? Support us by going to www.jenniferhurvitz.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Peace, love, and truth.